Have you ever found yourself craving that ridiculously juicy burger, even when, maybe a salad is the smarter choice?
Obviously.
Or maybe you've looked at a sleek new car, felt that pull, even though your current one runs perfectly fine?
Happens all the time.
And what about, the thought and cash that goes into getting a really elaborate gift for a friend or your spouse?
Mm.
Well, today we're doing a deep dive into some really fascinating source material. It suggests our buying decisions and even our relationships maybe aren't as much about free choice as we like to think.
Yeah, it seems there are often echoes of these ancient, uh, deeply ingrained evolutionary impulses.
Right.
It's true. And what's really illuminating in these sources is how you can pretty much map almost every consumption thing we do back to four basic Darwinian goals.
Oh.
Survival,
Okay.
reproduction, helping out our kin selection, and reciprocity, give and take.
So our consuming instinct is basically driven by these big biological goals.
At its core, yeah, that's the argument.
When you mention evolutionary psychology, some people might immediately jump to, unfalsifiable just so stories. Or maybe even think it's morally problematic.
Right, that criticism comes up.
But this material offers some pretty strong counterarguments, doesn't it? It stresses that evolutionary theory is just explaining what is, not what should be.
Exactly. It's descriptive, not prescriptive.
And it's presented as a rigorously tested science, not just guesswork.
Precisely. And it's so important to separate the actual science from, historical misuses or misinterpretations.
Like social Darwinism, that sort of thing.
Exactly. There's nothing inherently sexist or patriarchal about exploring these deep biological mechanisms. It's just a framework for understanding diversity, including human behavior, all of it.
Okay, so let's jump into the first one, survival. Because, well, we all gotta eat.
Fundamental.
And it really seems like humans are just utterly obsessed with food. Think about our language, acquired taste, apple of my eye, bring home the bacon.
It's everywhere.
Yeah. And movies like Ratatouille, famous paintings, so many cultural things center on food. Even our biggest life events, celebrations, mourning, often marked by food.
Indeed. And while, some food preferences are innate, like historically our liking for fatty, high-calorie foods, which was great when food was scarce.
An adaptation, right.
Right. But our environment also plays a huge role in shaping our tastes. Like what a mother eats during pregnancy can influence the baby's preferences later on through the amniotic fluid.
Probably before birth even.
Yeah, and then postnatally through breastfeeding too. But here's the cool part. It's not just culture overriding biology. It's this idea of gene-culture coevolution.
Gene-culture coevolution. Okay, tell us more about that.
So it's basically when our cultural habits, things we do, actually put pressure on our genes over generations and can change our genetic makeup. The classic example is lactose tolerance. Most mammals stop being able to digest milk after infancy. But in populations that started practicing pastoralism, raising cattle and drinking their milk, individuals who happen to have a mutation allowing them to digest lactose as adults had a huge advantage.
More calories, better survival.
Exactly. So that cultural practice, drinking milk, actually led to the gene for lactose tolerance becoming much more common in those specific groups.
Wow. That's a really powerful example of how deep this biology-culture link goes.
It really is.
Now, here's something that makes you think. We love variety, right? All-you-can-eat buffets. Almost impossible to resist.
Guilty as charged.
It caters to that, deep-seated instinct to hoard food, maybe from times when you didn't know where the next meal was coming from.
A relic of caloric uncertainty, exactly.
But what happens when that drive meets, the modern supermarket with a gazillion choices?
Ah, yes, the paradox.
Yeah.
The material really digs into Barry Schwartz's work on the paradox of choice.
I've heard of that.
Yeah, it shows how having too many options, like 285 kinds of cookies or 360 shampoos, can actually make us less satisfied. It can even lead to anxiety, decision fatigue.
So more choice isn't always better.
Not necessarily. Our evolutionary wiring for seeking variety, which was super important back then, kind of clashes with modern abundance. It can actually make us less happy with our final choice.
Even just daily food decisions, facing over 200 choices. It really shows that sometimes less is more.
It does. It simplifies things.
And sticking with innate needs, the sources mention our biophilic nature. What's that about?
Biophilia. It's basically our deep instinctual love for and connection to nature. It seems to be wired into us.
So not just liking pretty scenery.
No, It goes deeper. It actually has measurable health benefits. There are studies showing hospital patients recover faster if their room has a window looking out onto nature compared to a brick wall.
That's amazing.
It is. And it raises big questions for, say, urban planning. Are we maybe focusing too much on just minimizing construction costs and ignoring this fundamental need?
Creating nature deficit disorder, as one author called it.
Exactly. Richard Louv's term. It suggests we might be negatively impacting our well-being by disconnecting from nature.
Okay, so survival gets us fed, connected to nature, hopefully. What's the next big evolutionary drive?
Well, the next huge one is reproduction, getting it on, as you said.
Right.
And the material frames choosing a mate as, get this, the ultimate consumption decision.
Wow. So we're like products in the mating market, advertising ourselves.
In a sense, yes. And what's fascinating is how consistent some of the signals are across cultures.
How so?
Well, why do men in so many different societies go for flashy status symbols like Porsches or Ferraris historically? And why do women universally use things like cosmetics or wear high heels?
Good point.
If it was purely cultural conditioning, you'd expect to find at least one culture where women drive the fast cars and men wear, I don't know, ballet tights to signal attractiveness.
But we don't see that.
Nope. These signaling behaviors pop up in very similar forms worldwide. Take high heels. They're not just uncomfortable.
Tell me about it.
Right. They actually subtly change a woman's posture and gait, making it appear more feminine, more attractive to male observers. It's a subconscious signal.
And there's research on this.
Yeah. Research even showing, for example, that strippers tend to receive larger tips when they're at their peak fertility, suggesting men are picking up on subtle biological cues, maybe linked to gait or pheromones.
Whoa, okay, that's deep. So what about courtship stuff? Flowers, engagement rings, are those just cultural fluff?
The material argues they're prime examples of costly signaling. Think about the global cut flower industry. It's worth billions, maybe $40 billion, for a product that dies in a week.
That is pretty extraordinary when you put it like that.
Right. While it might tap into our biophilia, that love of nature, its main role in courtship is likely as a signal of investment, of resources.
And engagement rings, especially the expensive ones.
Same principle, but even stronger. The expectation sometimes for a ring costing, say, 25% of a man's yearly salary, that serves as a financially painful and therefore honest signal.
Honest because it's hard to fake. It shows real commitment.
Exactly. It separates the serious suitors, the ones willing to invest heavily, from those who aren't. That famous slogan, "Diamonds are forever," named best of the 20th century for a reason. It tapped right into that deep psychological need for commitment signals.
Okay, so we have honest signals, but people aren't always honest, especially when trying to attract someone. What about deception?
Yes. That's the flip side. And the sources say both men and women engage in deceptive signaling in the mating game.
How so? Examples.
Well, women might use things like push-up bras, makeup, even cosmetic surgery to enhance features linked to youth or fertility, or create illusions of certain body shapes.
Okay. And men?
Men might go for fake luxury goods, like a counterfeit Rolex to signal wealth they don't have, or exaggerate their income. Or, interestingly, some men even wear fake wedding bands.
Why would they do that?
Because research suggests married men are sometimes perceived by women as being pre-screened, more desirable, stable, already vetted by another woman.
That's sneaky.
It's all part of the signaling game. And think about extreme risk-taking. Things like base jumping, where something like 90% of fatalities are male.
Wow, 90%.
Yeah. Or rituals like the Ngol in Vanuatu, where young men dive off high platforms with vines tied to their ankles. It seems crazy, but from an evolutionary perspective,
It's a signal.
a very powerful sexual signal of bravery, physical prowess, maybe genetic fitness traits that are often highly valued by women in a potential mate.
Incredible, the lengths these drives push us to. Okay, switching gears slightly within reproduction, adult entertainment, the material points out a big split, right? Men consuming more online porn, women more romance novels.
Yeah, that's a pretty consistent finding.
So why the difference? What does the research suggest?
Well, the research tends to show some general differences in male versus female sexual fantasies. On average, male fantasies are described as more frequent, involving a greater number of partners, more visually explicit, and perhaps less focused on emotional connection or narrative.
Okay.
And online pornography often delivers almost exactly that. Lots of visual novelty, multiple partners, quick scene changes, focusing on the visual aspect.
That's like a blueprint for those specific desires.
Pretty much. And this ties into something called the Coolidge effect.
A Coolidge effect. Sounds presidential.
It's named after an old anecdote involving President Coolidge visiting a chicken farm. Basically, it described the observation, seen in many species, including humans, that males show renewed sexual interest when new females are introduced. A strong drive for sexual variety.
Ah, okay. So porn taps into that too. And romance novels for women.
Romance novels, conversely, often focus much more on the emotional journey, the relationship development, the courtship narrative, which aligns more closely with traditionally studied female fantasy patterns.
Fascinating split. Okay, let's move from romance to family. Advertising slogans like kid tested, mother approved, obviously target parents' instincts.
Absolutely. Deep instinct to invest in offspring.
But the why behind helping family, altruism, Darwin himself struggled with that, didn't he? Seemed counter to survival of the fittest.
He did find it puzzling. The solution really came later with Bill Hamilton's theory of kin selection.
Kin selection, how does that work?
The core idea is that we act altruistically towards our relatives because we share genes with them. So by helping your sibling or your child survive and reproduce, you're indirectly helping to pass on copies of your own genes.
So it's not purely selfless from the gene's perspective.
From the gene's eye view, exactly. It's about propagating shared genetic material. The sources give a really stark example. Living organ donations.
Right.
In the U.S., over a 2-year period, there were something like 11,672 living organ donations. A huge number.
Yeah.
How many do you think were anonymous given to a stranger?
I don't know. Maybe a few hundred.
Only 31.
31 out of nearly 12,000.
Yeah. Overwhelmingly, organs go to family members. It's a powerful illustration of that kin selection principle in action.
Wow. Okay. And connecting this idea of evolved traits. What about kids' toys? Is it all just society telling boys to like trucks and girls to like dolls? The material challenges that, right?
It does. It brings up research on girls with a condition called congenital adrenal hyperplasia, or CAH.
Okay, what's that?
These girls are exposed to higher levels of masculinizing hormones, like testosterone, while in the womb. And studies find that even from a young age, they tend to show a stronger preference for toys typically associated with boys, like cars, fire engines, compared to dolls.
Even without specific social pressure.
The findings suggest that. It points towards there being some innate, universal, sex-specific toy preferences, likely influenced by prenatal hormone exposure, not just socialization. Toy companies might be tapping into these evolved preferences, maybe without even realizing the deep biology behind it.
Interesting. Okay, but what about our friends? We do huge things for friends, and they aren't usually related to us. How does that fit in? That seems truly altruistic.
Another great puzzle. This is where Robert Triever's theory of reciprocal altruism comes into play.
Reciprocal altruism, like you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours.
Exactly that. The idea is that this system of mutual helping evolved as a kind of insurance policy, especially in ancestral times, against unpredictable hardships like starvation.
So I help you when you're down, knowing you'll help me when I'm down.
Precisely. It's a tit-for-tat system built on trust and repeated interactions. You see echoes of it everywhere, like in universal hospitality rituals, where generosity is given with the expectation, often unspoken, that it will be returned someday.
That makes sense.
There's a really powerful personal story in the source material about escaping the Lebanese Civil War.
Oh.
Yeah, the author recounts how deep friendships, ones that cut across religious and political lines, literally provided life-saving protection, though it mentions it came at the cost of a substantial payment.
So, still reciprocal, even in extreme circumstances.
It highlights both the immense value of those bonds and the underlying expectation of reciprocity, even if it's financial in that case.
Okay. And looking at our social circles more broadly, the material talks about Dunbar's number. What's the significance of that?
Robin Dunbar's research suggests that, based on the size of our neocortex, humans kind of evolved to effectively manage relationships within a group of about 150 people. That's like the outer limit of people we know well and can trust.
150? That sounds oddly specific.
It does, but it pops up surprisingly often. Think about average wedding guest lists. They often hover around 164 people. Pretty close, right?
Huh, yeah, actually.
And even in the modern world, look at online social networks. The average number of Facebook friends, for instance, often settles around 150 for many users.
So even online, we're constrained by this ancient social brain.
It seems that way. Our underlying social architecture, shaped by evolution, still influences how we structure our communities, even in totally new environments like the internet.
And this need to belong, to be part of the group, that shows up in fashion too, right? It's a huge industry, but not just about looking pretty.
Not at all. Fashion is a really potent signal of in-group membership. It tells others who we are, what group we belong to, whether it's social class, maybe ethnic identity, or even just sporting a sports team.
Ah, the team color.
Exactly. There's that phenomenon called basking in reflected glory, or burging. Studies show students are much more likely to wear their university's team apparel on Monday morning after the team won a game over the weekend compared to after a loss.
So we want to associate with the winners.
Yep. It's a clear Darwinian mechanism.
Huh?
Link yourself to success, distance yourself from failure. It boosts your own perceived status within the social group. A very subtle but effective social strategy.
That makes sense.
And this connects to a bigger point. Why do some cultural things just resonate across the board? Certain stories, song themes, myths.
Yeah, why is that?
The material suggests they act like cultural fossils or remains. They reflect our shared biological heritage, our common evolved psychology.
Fossils of the mind.
Kind of, yeah. Take song lyrics. Think about popular songs by female artists. They don't usually sing about a guy's six-pack abs, right?
Not usually, no.
More often, the theme is about finding a man who is high status, dependable, can provide resources. Think of Destiny's Child's Bills, or TLC's No Scrubs.
Okay, I see the pattern.
The argument isn't that this is like sexism pushed by songwriters. It's that these themes resonate because they tap into evolved and often sex-specific preferences regarding mate selection. They feel true on some level.
Speaking of things that resonate, let's talk about hope. The material makes a really strong claim here that hope is this super valuable commodity.
Sold by everyone, yeah. Cosmetic companies, self-help gurus, punchers.
And it says religion might be the most perfect product ever. From a marketing angle, why?
Well, think about the product features purely from a marketing perspective. It offers a solution to our deepest existential fear, death, by guaranteeing immortality or an afterlife.
Okay, that's a strong selling point.
Huge. Then it often encourages intergenerational brand loyalty. Kids are usually raised in their parents' faith, and many religions have strong mechanisms to promote lifelong loyalty, sometimes with severe social or perceived supernatural penalties for leaving the faith, for apostasy.
Built to last and built to spread.
From that marketing lens, it's remarkably effective at addressing fundamental human anxieties and needs.
And this links back to beauty, too, right? Another industry built on hope. That old saying, beauty is in the eye of the beholder. Maybe not so accurate.
The sources really challenge that idea that beauty is purely subjective or just a social construct.
How so?
There's strong evidence for universal metrics of beauty. Things like facial symmetry, clear skin, certain eye sizes, specific waist-to-hip ratios in women. These are found attractive across different cultures.
So it's not totally random.
Doesn't seem to be. And fascinatingly, even infants who haven't had much time for social conditioning will stare longer at faces that adults rate as beautiful.
Wow. Pre-programmed preferences. Seems like it. So, marketers sell hope. Charles Revson, the founder of Revlon, famously said, "In the factory, we make cosmetics. In the store, we sell hope."
Hope of achieving that ideal, tapping into those innate preferences.
Exactly. And you see a similar dynamic with things like medical quackery. Products like the Cure bracelet or practices like therapeutic touch, which lack scientific backing.
Yeah.
They prey on our desperate, fundamental Darwinian instinct to survive, to find a cure, to alleviate pain. That deep hope can sometimes override our rational assessment of the evidence.
So, okay, bringing this together, what does this evolutionary lens tell us about behaviors that seem, well, irrational or even self-destructive? Like eating disorders or compulsive gambling, or even excessive tanning, despite knowing the risks.
That's a key point. The material suggests that many of these maladaptive consumption patterns aren't just random failures of willpower or lack of information.
Do you have deeper roots? Often, yes. And they're frequently sex-specific. Eating disorders predominantly affect women. Pathological gambling overwhelmingly affects men. Women generally know more about the dangers of UV radiation, but are more likely to engage in excessive tanning.
So it's not just ignorance.
No. From a Darwinian viewpoint, these might not be irrational in the sense of being random. They could be adaptive mechanisms like striving for attractiveness, tanning, thinness, or status and risk-taking gambling that have become misfired or exaggerated in our modern environment.
Our old programming running on new hardware, basically.
That's a good way to put it. Adaptive processes poorly tuned to the current context, sometimes leading to harmful outcomes.
And this isn't just personal stuff, right? This thinking applies in the business world, too.
Absolutely. The sources explore several areas, for example, financial trading, Studies have linked higher testosterone levels in male traders to greater risk-taking and potentially higher short-term profits.
Creating a feedback loop.
Potentially, yeah. A loop of bravado and risk. It also seems to influence hiring unconscious biases favoring attractive candidates or candidates with facially dominant features. Even things like the height of male CEOs correlating with company profits.
Seriously, height.
There's research suggesting that, yeah, these deep-seated associations between physical traits and perceived competence or leadership ability.
Wow.
But it's not all about biases. There's also the positive application like biomimicry.
Learning from nature's design.
Exactly. Studying how evolution has solved problems over millions of years, how a lotus leaf repels water, how termite mounds stay cool, and applying those principles to create innovative human technologies. It's recognizing nature as the ultimate R&D lab.
Okay, so wrapping this up. From craving that burger to choosing a car, picking our wedding guests, even the songs we like, it seems our ancient biology really does leave a huge mark on pretty much everything we do.
It leaves an indelible mark, yeah. This deep dive really underscores how those 4 core drives, survival, reproduction, kin selection, reciprocity, seem to underpin so much of our consuming instinct and social behavior.
It's a powerful way to look at things.
It really is. It offers a framework for cutting through some of the surface noise, the sheer volume of information, to see the underlying patterns and why we do what we do.
Understanding these deep drives helps us understand ourselves and the world better.
I think so. It can help make sense of behaviors that seem puzzling otherwise, and maybe even anticipate how people might react in different situations.
So here's a final thought for everyone listening. The next time you make a purchase, or even just interact with a friend or family member, maybe pause for a second. Ask yourself, which ancient drive might be pulling the strings here?
Survival?
Yeah.
Mating? Kin? Reciprocity?
Yeah, and how might just recognizing that drive maybe change how you approach that next consuming decision? Something to think about.